Few locomotives are so beloved by fans, few so sought by photographers, cinematographers, and railfans alike, few so ingrained into our early childhood memories, and few so neglected by the world of model railroading as the Strasburg Rail Road No. 90. So, what do you get when promised the first true-to-blueprint model of this engine? A model promised with accurate paint and audio. A model that costs nearly $2,000. You get very, very high expectations. Announced in Lionel's 2021 Volume 2 catalog and shipped in late 2023, the models were easily the most anticipated O-scale model release of 2023. I myself grew up going to Strasburg in the late 1990s into the early 2000s. 90 in the early 1990s scheme was an essential part of the formation of my tastes and preferences in trains and model trains. So, we're taking a look at Lionel's Strasburg 90 210 Decapod 1990 scheme. As always with Dynamo Scale reviews, my goal is to be as objective as possible, and so I will be judging this model far more harshly than usual given the promises made by Lionel and the price tag attached. I think it is only fair to the consumer to hold the model to a higher standard that matches the promises made by Lionel and the price charged for such a small locomotive. You are watching the first of two reviews of the model. This is the short-term review. The long-term review will come out about a year after the short-term's release. To start this off, let's take a quick look at what this is a model of. A Baldwin Standard Decapod. More specifically, Strasburg Rail Road No. 90. A fan favorite since your introduction to the SRC in the 1960s, 90 has spent the last 6 decades hauling passengers and freight over the road to paradise. This 1924 Baldwin product has seen a lot of fanfare over those 6 decades, though an accurate O-scale release was somehow a miss, until Lionel announced this brass hybrid model of 90 in 2021. As the price has been such a hotly contested issue, and it is indeed very, very expensive, and this is a brass hybrid model made in relatively low production numbers, it is only fair we compare the price to brass models made in low numbers rather than mass-produced models made primarily of die-cast components. The third rail Sunset models, upcoming New York Central Mikados, similarly sized engines to the Baldwin Decapods, are priced at $2,199.95. The Strasburg 90 models retailed for $1,899.99, and do feature more advanced electronics. While this does not negate the high price, I think this does show some justification for the price. As many have said online and in person to me while testing this model, I also felt it appropriate to put to bed the notion that these models are old MTH Russian Decapod toolings with new shells. Side by side, it's plainly obvious that these are two very different 210Os. The Russian Decapods are considerably smaller engines, and due to their die-cast construction, are substantially heavier than the Lionel Baldwin Standard Decapods. Now, this leads us into build quality. The engines are very light for their size, which is typical for brass models, as brass is a lighter material. This does mean the engine's pulling power will be lessened, though. I had no issues when pulling 7 of the MTH wood-sided passenger cars through S-curves, so this isn't something I have had issues with. The details, being brass, are extremely fine and delicate, and, for the most part, highly accurate to the real SRC No. 90. The engine is, for some reason, lacking any riveting on the front of the smokebox, a detail even entry-level models have had for decades. So I do think this is an odd choice on Lionel's part, And for me at least, it does stand out when side by side with another model. The lack of riveting on the boiler face makes 90 look far less realistic. Other than that, the only physical detailing issues I found were an oddly oversized whistle and drive rods, though that's far less of a concern than the missing rivets. I also noted that the cap for the sand dome, which houses the control switches, does not fit on the model. It will not seat fully, leaving a gap at all times on one side or the other of the sand dome. This does not appear to be an issue on all of the 90 models, though I have confirmed that at least some of the other 1990s painted models share this issue. Now, moving to the paint job on the 1990s model is where I begin to find a lot more issue with Lionel's handling of the model. The red on the cab roof and tender deck is too bright, and the graphite on the smokebox is similarly too bright for the 1990s scheme. Though, more glaringly, the lettering on the tender is noticeably too small, and the exterior back wall of the coal bunker is painted black, while 90 wore red here in the 1990s. The gold lettering on the number plate is the wrong shade, and as a result lacks contrast with the red, resulting in what appears to be a blank number plate. It is hard enough to see, even in real life, that while operating this model at 2 open houses, I had numerous individuals approach me and comment on the blank red dot on the smokebox. In fact, the number plate is lettered and numbered exactly as 90's plate is in real life. You simply can't see it as there is nearly no color contrast between the 2 paints used on the number plate. Lionel used a matte finish paint, which looks okay, though when side by side with models with a light gloss finish, this does make 90 stand out as a more toyish color. Moving to the model sounds. Lionel promised accurate audio. Did they deliver? Mostly. We got 90's bell, which sounds superb. The default whistle is 90's Reading 6 chime, though it doesn't sound quite right. Quillable whistles are always a bit off from the prototype. MTH and Lionel have both struggled with this over the years. The air compressor, dynamo whine, blow down, and ghost whistle feature are all audio directly off 90, though the exhaust is not. Normally, I'd overlook this on a model with so many other engine-specific audio features, though given the promise of accurate audio, I do take issue with this. Lionel's reason was that the 90 did not work hard enough for exhaust audio. After 12 plus years of shooting at the SRC, getting footage and audio of the engines, I can't help but feel this was a lazy way out, as asking the engine crew to make the engine work for the sake of audio is not uncommon, and it is something the SRC crews have done for Dynamo on many occasions over many years. Lionel also could have chartered the engine for a short run or 2 up the hill and back to get the audio that we were promised. Options were available, so I do not accept Lionel's rather flimsy excuse here. Moving on to operations. The engine performed rather well in my initial testing. I was impressed with the operation over switches, in that it did not lose power over Atlas 072 and Atlas high-speed switches, something engines of similar size often struggle with. The engine had 2 minor issues, however. The low-speed operation did show some minor speed fluctuations, and it may work itself out in time, but only time will tell. The second issue I found: the engine does on occasion get stuck on Atlas high-speed switches during reverse moves. The engine's rear electrical pickup roller can hit the gap in the switches before the frog just right to wedge itself in the gap, similar to how the Lionel 2023 release of the 260 Moguls I tested would do. Though, unlike those Moguls, this issue is hit or miss on the Baldwin standard Decapods. It seems the pickup rollers are just barely small enough to fit into this gap, so unless the engine is sitting just right to lodge the roller down into the gap, it won't get stuck. Though it's still an issue worth noting for those who may be using Atlas high-speed switches and looking to run these decapods on their layouts. The model's smoke output is, quite frankly, abysmal. I don't know any other way to put it. Fully primed, fresh out of the box, smoke unit on max, and given a few minutes to heat up, this was the best smoke I got out of the engine. As for whistle steam, it was never thick enough of a stream to be very visible even when the engine was sitting still. For me personally, this is a non-issue, as I won't be using smoke features in my home. Though, given it is a listed feature, I felt it well worth noting for those who may care. So, all in all, while I'm happy to have this model, as it's one I've been hoping will be made in O-scale since 2002, I can't deny or overlook its shortcomings. It is far from a perfect model, but I also don't deny its many wonderful qualities. Is it worth the price? I suppose that is up to the individual consumer. Now, the next question will be, how does this expensive little 210 hold up over the next year? We shall see.